So, hiking up to this area here, and it's kind of steep. I don't know. So I made it to the top of that steep incline, and yeah, I'll show you where I'm gonna walk. So I'm gonna go all the way up this path here, and there's gonna be something special waiting at the end, hopefully. But man, it's windy. Hopefully the audio is not too bad, but fuck it, I don't care. We're gonna talk about it. So I kind of summarized the trip before in my first part of this, and these next parts are gonna be kind of explaining in complexity my experience, and these videos are gonna be a bit long because I'm explaining my experience. So if you're not into watching long videos, you're welcome to leave, but I hope that you stick along and listen to my experience, and maybe you'll learn something. There's about like 6 or 7 phases of this entire experience. So the first part of this experience, I talked about how I smoked, and I went back to my friend's room, sat on a beanbag chair, and this was where I kind of sat in the beanbag chair, and I was I was very comfortable. Laid. I don't know where that came from, but anyways, I was very comfortable, and I had sat in that chair multiple times. It's kind of like my favorite chair, but this time, obviously, very different. So I began to feel as if I was transcending. It felt very intense. It was as if every single cell in my body was energizing at once and rising, and it felt like I was ascending into a higher dimension. And as these rushing feelings were happening, I was freaking out, kinda. But like I said, I came to the realization that this was going to unfold whether I wanted it to or not, whatever was happening to me. And so I began to let go. And lots of feelings but I can't really describe to you came up, and epiphanies and realizations and accumulations of multiple feelings I've never felt before in my life, all surging and happening at once. And all of these feelings got more and more intense to the point where I just became absorbed in the entire experience. And let me get back to you when I get up this other hill here. It's very windy, so hopefully you can hear me. As I was saying, these feelings felt like a mix of, I had all these different feelings that coalesced and became quite amazing to feel. It felt like it was this euphoria beyond anything I've ever experienced in my life. And it all reached to this top at this point, coalesced into this point where it just became every single thing just stopped. This silence was like, so I can't really explain it, but this silence, this piano tune and this silence and everything stopped, it was like the music I was listening to, maybe that was playing in the room. Everything, or just everything around me coalesced into this piano tune that crescendoed up and down over and over again repeatedly. And it was so, I can't even describe to you. It was like you hit the highest frequency and there was a ceiling it hit. And this was just the tune that was playing over and over again. And that's when I began to completely lose all identity. This is kind of where my experience starts to take a really terrifying and dark turn. Because I entered this place and it felt like I described, like I didn't have, it was in a realm, I didn't go too much detail into, and I might try to explain this a bit later, but I describe it as very 5-dimensional. And, what is the 5 dimension? So I'm a mathematician, so I'm not even going to bother trying to explain it. And I might go through a video later so I can better articulate it. But this place was a place where I didn't seem to have any identity, any form, any body, any thoughts, any feelings, anything. But I was simultaneously experiencing in the most all-encompassing way everything that was in front of me that was going on, which was very overwhelming. And it began to take a very dark turn. I remember like the weird start of this experience, which I didn't really describe too much because this is why it's very complicated for me to explain this experience, is because so many things happened. But the rising was very, as I was rising, at some point I remember having this rush of thousands of thoughts, like ideas and thoughts and realizations, and I was like, what is happening to me? And I began to it's like my soul was grasping for every last understanding of what was happening to me. And I remember going through these ideas that were more vivid than anything you could possibly imagine, of ideas and plots and plans of getting revenge on whoever did this to me. And it was not in my control. Those weren't things I was intentionally thinking. It was things that were flooding into my brain. It felt like my brain was preparing to just shut off, and all these insane terrifying thoughts and plans were just flooding into my brain, and it was very dark. I were experiencing like thousands of different ways to, um, like, how do I even describe it? To like murder and and all these dark things. I don't want to go to do too much detail, but it was very dark and scary and uncontrollable. And that was before it kind of reached to the silence. I entered into this place. And, I'm going to walk a little more and then I'll start explaining this. It's like the wind just stops in this area. It's so weird. So it doesn't sound like anyone's here, but so I'm trying to find, I don't want to spoil it, but there's a certain spot I'm trying to get to here, because I've been here before. I haven't ever hiked up over. I went the hard way. But so like I explained, everything came to this silence, and I went into this space and I lost all identity of everything that I ever knew. And I can't really describe to people how this feels. And this is why I describe it as dying, because it didn't feel like it was like, oh, I'm just going through the motions of dying. No, it felt like I died. It was so everything. It was like losing everything you ever know and ever loved and ever, all meaning of everything about your existence, and being aware of all of it. And this is something that was very a learning experience, to say the least. And I don't know if I should go down here. Let me look. But this was a learning experience. And now I'm going to get into, that's the beginning of the trip, and it kind of starts to get very bizarre and unknown territory and insane. From that point on, it gets even more crazy, and it just keeps, the whole trip just felt like one massive roller coaster that is far more intense and scarier than any roller coaster or skydiving or anything you could possibly imagine in this life. And I wouldn't skydive. I'm terrified of heights, but so it's funny of me to say that, but it's true. Like, this experience is one that I have not been interested in wanting to repeat ever since it happened to me, even if I feel like I could handle it, because obviously I went through this experience and I came out the other side somehow, miraculously. And I don't know if it was a 5-MeO DMT experience, but I talk about it like that, or if it was an NDE, who knows. But it was something else. So, and I'm going to start talking about the dark parts of the experience, and this is kind of like in the order that I can recall everything happening, because this place I entered into, it didn't seem to have, like I said, the total silence, and it felt like when I entered into this place that I literally got to see what it was like for time to not exist. And all sorts of weird stuff happens when time doesn't exist, because you're no longer constrained by the physical limitations of this reality, and you're no longer a part of this reality when time no longer exists. That's something I learned through this experience. And you began to go into complete unknown territory, which was very familiar at the same time, which was what was amazing about it. Is, I mean, everything was, that's this, it was so familiar. Everything felt like I had been there before and I was going back, or it just felt so familiar. I don't know how to describe to you how familiar it felt. It felt more familiar than anything in this earth that I've ever experienced. And like the most familiar song you've ever heard, the most familiar person you know, it felt more familiar than all that. It felt like this was where my soul, it felt like I was going back into the realm that I originally come from. But at the same time, it was so alien and unfamiliar. It's the strangest thing, and I can't even describe to you how this feels. But I should also get out of the way that this darkness, I feel, is necessary to talk about. And I never read any of these dark experiences with any trip reports of 5-MeO-DMT I ever read. So this is why I'm not sure that's what I experienced. But I feel like it's necessary to talk about, because people need to understand, if this was 5-MeO-DMT, they need to understand how impactful these experiences are, and that they are not drug experiences. They're not roller coasters. They're not rides that you go on and get to the other side and you're like, oh, I'm so happy I did that. This is something that has changed my life and my perspective, and instilled the fear of God in me, let's say. But nonetheless, let's get into the dark aspects of this trip report. So as I said, I entered into this place, and I don't remember actually, because there is no memory in this place. There's no identity, there's nothing to hold on to, and I remember experiencing this void that I described briefly. But this void was literally sucking all the atmosphere of every beginning thought that began to form in this whatever I was. It felt like this was like the thing that was sucking me into this place and bringing me away from this physical reality. And what this felt like is indescribable mostly, but it felt like I was a vegetable. I didn't have any, like I said, I didn't have any identity, any thoughts, anything. I was just this pure, energetic pinpoint of light. Like I gave the metaphor, I was this pinpoint of light in this infinite sea of blackness. And this void was just absorbing everything that was coming into existence. And I could see and experience all this happening. And it was very intense. Like it felt like I was a vegetable and I had permanently went insane. And I did. There's nothing like that, is pure insanity. It was pure insanity in its absolute fullest extent. there was not, like, I didn't grasp on it. There was no morals, there was no good, there was no bad, there was no anything. There was nothing. Just this void that was constantly extracting everything. And it felt like I was there forever. Like I was watching the sands of time. Just, I didn't see time because time didn't really exist, but, you know, metaphorically, it was like I was watching the sands of time just go forever. And that was all I was seeing, was just where I was in this movement and constant. And it's weird because I describe it as I was like I was nothing, but at the same time I was experiencing more than anything you will ever experience in this life. Damn, right? It's crazy. Okay, let me show you this. This is just, it's so serene here. There's just nobody here, and it's absolutely incredible. It's so beautiful. That's also kind of why I wanted to go to a place like this to explain my experience. Okay, this is sketchy, so I need to be careful right here, but because that's a fucking cliff, bro. But wow, okay. Holy shit. Let me show you guys. You can hear the water down there. Wow. So, I experienced this void, and as I settled into this place, I began to become aware of the vastness of it. And I remember it felt like I understood this place I was in, and it was like this place was a well of souls. And I began to see these points of experience in this place, and these points were, I could see the start and the where they were going and the full experience of all these points. And as I looked more, I began to realize that these were souls, other souls that were in this place and experiences, and I could see their entire path laid out, where they were going, and this was really beautiful. I began to become aware of this entity. I don't know at what point this started happening, so it's kind of hard to pinpoint, but at some point after like seeing that or during it, while I was in this place, because everything kind of felt connected during this whole experience, felt connected in the strangest way, so it's really hard to describe, but I felt like there was this entity. It was mostly throughout the whole experience was this feeling of loneliness and going through something indescribably profound. But I remember it felt like I could see and understand the intentions and what they were planning, and that they were during this experience, they felt very dark, scary, and it was like your worst fear coming, like hunting and coming for you. And it felt like they were I began to feel that I was this soul that had a path, that I was unattached to anyone else's path in this place, and that I had my own individual path, and I was going whichever direction I want. And my consciousness or my soul began moving and going away from this entity, just running from them. And I just began to sink into this dark, lost, lonely, like the lowest frequency of emptiness you can imagine. Like it was just pure emptiness and sad, and it felt like I was grieving the death of myself. Okay, so I'm gonna travel a bit more, and then I will get back to you guys in a bit, collect my thoughts. Came to this place that felt like it was like a carbon copy of a room in this other parallel reality that was like a parallel reality of the room that I was in reality, that my body. And it felt like there were these different like portals in this room, but it was all connected and went back to the same place. And as I was in this feeling of non-identity and everything, I remember it was like I was viewing myself from third person, going through this room over and over again and trying to find, it felt like a dream, really. It was very strange, but like much more realistic than a dream, and scary. Not realistic, but just more it felt more real. But I remember this place, I went through so many of like the darkest of my like fears, and it felt like I had just been going through this room forever. And I'll put like a kind of an artwork by Salvia Droid that very much is a great like visual representation of what I feel like I experienced during this portion of the experience. But you know, it was like a room that was nothing like reality. I can't like describe it. It felt like this was like a metaphysical 5-dimensional room that I was going through, and it felt like I was like trapped there and I was never going to leave. Yeah, I fell into this deep and dark despair, and I couldn't seem to escape this place. And you know, that's kind of the dark part of this experience, and I'll try and explain the entity a bit more that I experienced, because I don't feel like I did it justice how scary this was. So it felt like I was like an ant in a universe trying to understand how it worked, and this entity lived in this place and understood it completely and how it worked, and they were going through this place. And it felt like, I describe it, you know, I have thought about it, and it took me a long time to come to this realization, but I feel like they were some sort of guardian of this well of souls, this place that I entered into, and they were there to protect, and they didn't want any passerbys coming in and whatever in this place. And maybe they I don't know, but that's my theory, at least, as to what this was, because it felt like for a long time I was like, oh, this is some devil entity that's preying on the souls and there to trap them in dimensions. Because that's what I got, kind of trapped in this dimension. But I feel like they were genuinely a protector. Like, literally, like the Grim Reaper comes to mind. And my hands are about to, like, fall off. So I'm probably gonna end it here, and so that's gonna be like, that's my first portion, and my goal is to not only summarize the experience and explain it, but also to give you what I've learned from it and what I've taken and applied to my own life, and how I've integrated this experience to my life and how it has had an effect on me. And so that's about the end of this first part, and I just want to thank you guys for watching and listening, and I hope that you guys learn something from this. And if you've had your own experiences like this, I hope that it touched on other people's experiences and helped them clarify and not feel as alone. And I hope that you guys have a great day, and thank you so much for listening. All right, talk to you later. Bye. So where I need to reach is right down there. But I don't know how to get there. So I tried to reach it, but it seems to be even more difficult to get to than I originally thought it would be. So but I tried, so I hope you guys enjoyed the video though, anyways. And hopefully next time I go here I'll be able to get to it. I might make a second part of this, just me trying to hike to this area. But hope you guys have a good day, and thank you all for watching. Catch you later. Oop, almost fell there. Okay, catch you later. Bye. Check out this beautiful meander. Can't see because it's trees, but there's water all down there. So I'm about down there, but I'm still trying to figure out what the hell happened here. You see all these plants I showed earlier, but they burned somehow, so I guess this area burned. But it's weird because there's no trees here. I've been here before, so I'm not sure why it's only these little bushes. But you can tell they burned because check it out. It's ashes. So, yeah. Interesting.